Hello, you were probably expecting The Final Frontiersman, a YouTube channel about all things Trek and more. However, I have hijacked the signal to bring you a special review today. I am Agent B, and this is a review of Redacted, a new role-playing game by Yellow Hand. To keep things familiar for viewers of this channel, I am going to use the alert system. Yellow alerts for the things that I want to draw your attention to, red alerts for the things that I think are great, and rarely a black alert for things that are groundbreaking and game-changing. So, let me hop into the small window and let's take a look at Redacted. Redacted is an homage to the B movies, the sci-fi movies, the horror movies of the 1950s and 60s. But what's more is it's a celebration of UFO, alien, ghost, monster conspiracies throughout history, especially in the early to mid 20th century. So in this game, it asks you, what if the Roswell crash actually happened? And some of you probably are saying, but it did. But let's just pretend it did. So what if Roswell actually happened? What kind of world would that be? But not only Roswell, what if every wild conspiracy theory that you have ever heard of in your life was actually real? In this game, you play an agent of a group called Majestic, or maybe a similar group, government group or sponsored group by some organization. And your mission is to go out and keep the world safe, keep your country safe, whichever it may be, from all of the different alien, ghost, monster menace that come from these conspiracies. It is truly an homage to the feeling of those B movies of yesteryear, but also it has a lot of elements, depending on how you want to play the game, that it feels like the X-Files, it can feel like Men in Black, it can feel like This Island Earth, it can feel like Millennium, any of those sort of stories, but similarly to something like Call of Cthulhu, which has its Delta Green, which is kind of a version a type of story like this, it is mainly set or imagined to be in the 1950s and 60s. So imagine like a Fallout aesthetic with your alien conspiracy mysteries, and you are agents trying to keep everything under wraps. You don't want the public to know about all these crazy things that are really out there. You're trying to keep them as nothing more than wild, outlandish theories. So this game has you creating a story that is going to be like one of those B movies from the 1950s. And it really is, because similar to Star Trek Adventures, which this channel is mainly about and which I adore, this game is designed to be played as a movie. Star Trek Adventures is designed, really, if you look at it, to be played as a Star Trek TV series. So it has all the tropes of the TV series. This game as well, Redacted, has the tropes of being a movie, and you'll see that in the mechanical elements as we move on. So what kind of a story do you create before we jump into this? It could be any kind of story that fits this genre. They list in the book stories about alien encounters, unraveling conspiracies, unsolved mysteries. Don't let me think of that theme song. That'll scare the crap out of me. Mad science, political thrillers, action, high adventure, all of those things. Now, first, before I really jump into the content of the book, I want to do a, very quickly, just a yellow alert. Look at the design of this book. I love the design. These manila folders, it looks like all these notes from these classified files. This design and like photographs, this is continued throughout the book, and there's some neat little things that they can do with the content based on this design. Plus the art is gorgeous, and you might recognize a face or two in some of the artwork as I'm flipping through and like, Is that Aaron? I don't think I mentioned already. I may have because I'm in a time loop. I have tried doing this video about 10 times already. But this game is designed by Aaron Pollier and Al Spader. And not only that, but briefly I will mention that this is Aaron's creation of this majestic universe he has created. But it also has a miniatures war game called Saucer Squadron. It's the same setting. This is the role-playing game version of that, so you might find that out there too. Links will be down below. But so great to see two good associates of mine. I would like to call them friends. I don't know if I have that ability, but two close associates of mine making this awesome game, and I'm very excited about it. So love the art, love the images, love the design. Let's get into it. Stand down, yellow alert. So let's take a look. Chapter 1. Chapter 1, this is called Aftermath, and this is telling the story of this majestic universe for Redacted. And this entire chapter, I'm giving a red alert because, as I mentioned, I was so into conspiracy theories, ghosts, aliens, everything throughout junior high school and high school. I would go to the library all the time, take out so many books, reading all those weird conspiracy theories back when it was fun to think of conspiracy theories and not back when that was the standard belief for 90% of the population in the world. Not going to do a soapbox alert, but anyhow, I was so into it. There is so much information in here in this chapter about what happened from Roswell and onward and how the aliens came to Earth and they joined forces with different governments. It has a timeline event. There's so many things I recognize from reading up on conspiracy theories for basically my entire life. And it is just such a captivating read. The world building that went into this game that you can use to just flesh out so many adventures and wild stories, wild movies, because again, you're making a movie here in this game, the way it's presented. So taking a look at it, it goes into world superpowers. It's very detailed. As I said, the world building is insane in this. Talks about the United States, the Soviet Union, because again, we're in the 50s. It's a Cold War era. The British Empire and the United Kingdom, and it goes into other powers. It also goes into interstellar superpowers because there are different groups of aliens and beings that are now being introduced to the world now that they're revealed. Just like the conspiracy theories always said, the aliens were watching, they saw the nuclear test, like, uh-oh, we better step in, see what's going on before they destroy themselves. That's all part of the backstory. I don't want to spoil any of that for the player, for the GM, director. Again, I apologize. I forget exactly what the GM's called in this game. I'm getting my games mixed up. But the interstellar superpowers, the Greys, the Reticulans. And again, if you are into conspiracy theories, if you are into all those classic conspiracies, you're going to recognize a lot of the names, a lot of the descriptions, a lot of the incidents that supposedly happened. So you have the Greys, the Nordics, the Sternreich, Reptilians, and the Hopkinsville Goblins. Now, I do want to point out one small thing. The copy of this game, I am reviewing the copy of this book. This was a pre-finished copy. This wasn't exactly a finalized version. So it is possible some of the content, some of the information I'm going to mention or I may mention didn't make it or was changed by the time it went into the final version. This review, apologies, was supposed to go out weeks ago. Unfortunately, that couldn't happen because if there's a problem, yo, I got it. So tons of things going wrong, tons of things stopping me from making videos for a while. So this review's a bit late. So apologies if anything is not 100% lining up with what you find in the final version. Anyhow, one more thing I do want to point out before I go on to the next thing. I want to call out a yellow alert on top of this red alert. Again, the design. Look at this. It has little redacted sections throughout this world building chapter. I thought that was so cool. I hope that's in the final version because that was a really neat part. It doesn't get in the way. It's basically just dead space. You're not losing anything of the world building, but it helps keep that flavor, keep that style that you're reading a sensitive, classified document. Really love that. Stand down, yellow alert, resume red alert. Guess I could stand on red alert too, because let's just talk about Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is the characters. Want to get to this chapter, like, yeah, that's definitely Aaron in there now, so now I can see. But these are the characters that you'll encounter in the game, you'll play in the game, and that will be used. It starts by explaining what types of characters you find in stories in general. And this is more than just an advice chapter about storytelling or advice section about storytelling. These character types, this terminology is important for the game. Again, reiterating, you are making a movie when you play the game. So these kind of narrative devices and these storytelling devices, these are important elements for the game. So characters, they have motivations, they have competencies, which are like their skills, and they have attributes. Character creation asks you a bunch of questions before you start so you could get a vision of who your character is before you start putting the actual numbers and details down. There are the archetypes you choose. This game provides a list. It's administrator, conspiracy theorist, driver, engineer, investigator, journalist, law enforcement, medic, professor, public relations, scientist, soldier, spy, and survivor. There are examples from each of them, which I think is very cool. It gives you examples from movies, from films, so you could see that type of character in action if you want to visualize what that character looks like in this sort of a movie. It gives you those ideas. I thought that was a clever way of highlighting what those characters are. Then you choose a species. Of course, humans would be the main one, but you can play as some of the aliens as well. They have the reticulans, the greys that we already mentioned, androids, Hopkinville goblins. You can play, so you don't have to, because this is about a government agency that's working together with certain groups of aliens and beings to protect the world, protect the future from Earth now being noticed by the galaxy at large. So after you choose your species, then you will go in and use your points to level up your competencies. You'll assign attributes, languages. Then, next part, red alert, choose a conspiracy. Ooh, I love this. You give your character a conspiracy. And maybe the best way to frame it for viewers of this channel is look at it sort of like values from Star Trek Adventures, where you freely make up something about your character. This time, you are freely making up what conspiracy your character believes is true. Absolutely. And it gives an example. One of the examples it gives is FDR, Roosevelt, is not dead. His brain is actually leading from deep beneath the White House. Like something ridiculous, something outlandish, something that will be hard to prove, probably impossible to prove, but you are certain that that is true. That's your conspiracy. So you pick a conspiracy for your character, and just like values in STA, this also will have a mechanical effect as you play the game, and we'll get to that later. So cool. Choosing your own conspiracy. Stand down red alert. Then you choose your starting props. Props, like in the movie, this is your equipment, so they call it props because you're making a movie. And then you choose 3 special effects. Again, the movie things. Continuing on, they are like abilities or talents in Star Trek Adventures, but it also gives it a B-movie feel by it being a special effect. It's not a talent, it's a special effect. Very cool. So then it has a section about advancement, so leveling up, furthering your character. So you would ask questions after the mission ends, and you would get character points that will show you that you could raise your attributes, raise your competencies. You could get additional props, things like that, or even gain additional conspiracies. So standard stuff for character creation and leveling up, but it's actually very easy. It's a very simple system. It's very streamlined. Going to get into that just a little bit more in the next chapter, but one last thing, you also will choose vehicles. So characters in this game are always assumed to have a vehicle or have transportation to the mission, no matter what it is. It's a very narrative system. So let's talk about the system in Chapter 3, the rules. Chapter 3, this system uses the threshold system, which was developed by Al Spader, and we had already discussed it at least a bit on this channel with the Once Upon role-playing game that Al had created previously. So it uses the same system. It's a very narrative system. It's a very simple system. It allows for the game to start, move, and flow very quickly, very easily. Works well for a game like this, which is all about telling the story of your film that you're making. So in the threshold system, you are basically rolling a pool of d12s, trying to get equal to or greater than the target number. The target number is referred to as the threshold system. So you will do a test. In the test, difficulty ranges from 1 to 5. That value equals the number of successes you need to roll in order to pass the test. You gather your pool. So you choose an attribute. You spend any edits that you might have for the attribute. Again, edits, we're keeping that movie theme. And they can give you extra d12s to roll for this. You can add plot devices, which will give you additional d12s. There might be other modifications. Special effects might give you additional dice to roll. Then you determine, after you get your pool, you determine what the threshold is. The threshold is the target number. You determine that. Since you're rolling d12s, you always start at a 12. That would be the success. Then you reduce the threshold based on your competency value, if you have one. Then advantages, they might reduce the threshold. Environment might reduce the threshold. Any kind of special effects kit, that might increase or decrease the threshold. Hindrances are also in this game, so that might increase it back up. So you would calculate exactly what this target number, what this threshold number is. So once you determine that, you roll your dice. Any value equal to or greater than the threshold equals 1 success. If the number of successes is equal to or greater than difficulty, you pass. Once per game, you can apply your conspiracy that we talked about. Similar to value and determination in Star Trek Adventures, you could apply that conspiracy to your role, and you have to narrate, similar to Star Trek Adventures 2nd edition, how that conspiracy is relating to what's happening. That will allow you to re-roll. So you're using your conspiracy to earn the mechanical effect of a re-roll, but you have to narratively connect it to why it applies to that situation. And also, similar to Star Trek Adventures, if you have extra successes over the difficulty, you get to earn, I forgot the word I was going to use, you get to earn edits for that attribute. And those, as I mentioned before, they can give you bonuses that help you roll extra dice, lower the threshold, or maybe increase an advantage or remove a hindrance from a scene, depending on how many edits you have and spend. Pretty simple, pretty similar to what I've talked about a lot with Star Trek Adventures, so you could relate it to other games as well very easily, I'm sure. There's also options for dramatic failures, maybe not option, but dramatic failures. If you're rolling a 1, no matter what, you're getting a dramatic failure. So you could persevere, which allows you to re-roll a failure by increasing the intensity of a problem that is associated with your attribute. Each attribute has 2 problems with 3 levels of intensity that could happen to them. If all 6 of those intensity levels from those 2 problems combined are filled up, you become overwhelmed. And that's a way that kicks you out of the scene. You're basically knocked out, you're rendered useless for the scene until you're able to resolve your problems. So that's a neat little mechanical thing, similar to basically getting stunned, getting knocked out, or lately in Star Trek Adventures with things like scars and wounds and things like that are the stress that's building up. These problems on your attributes may knock you out of the scene until you could get yourself together. As I said, there are ways to resolve the problems and to get back if you're overwhelmed, but that's something that you might encounter in the game. In addition to the regular tests, there are things such as scene tests, which I would say are kind of like extended tasks in Star Trek Adventures, where all of the characters as a group, as a whole, are rolling their test together to reach a completion value for some massive moment in the scene. That's why it's a scene test. There's also vehicle tests, where if you are in a vehicle and you're using the vehicle to perform your actions, you would, instead of using your attribute, you will use the vehicle's attribute plus your character's vehicle operating competency for that task. There's also opposed tests, which are pretty easy. It's just a reactive character makes the test roll. The successes add a difficulty for the active character, and combat is exactly the same as opposed rolls. So there's no fancy difficult rules for combat. It's the exact same as those very simple opposed rolls that I just mentioned. Moving on, Chapter 4. This is directing the action. This is the Game Masters section. This is where the directors will learn what their jobs and responsibilities are, not only for this game, but gaming in general. And like a lot of modern role-playing games, it gives a lot of advice on how to set up your session zeros, expectations, safety, trying to make the game welcoming for everyone who sits down at your table. It talks about the different play styles of players. And you know what? I'm giving that a yellow alert. Because I really like the information there, because it talks about if many of you have played role-playing games for years, long time, with different groups, you've encountered people with very different play styles than your own. Some of them might be annoying to you. Some of them you might think are amazing. Some of them might be very unusual to what you're expecting, because different people have different ways that they play the game, that they appreciate the game, that they see the game. The section here, I really liked how it broke down a lot of the different play styles that you encounter in role-playing groups and how to deal with it. Basically, I mean, to you, it sounds like a strong word, but a lot of times there's clashing styles at the table. But how do you play a game with somebody that has this style and this style and this style, which might be very, very different from one another? How do you merge that all and make it seamless for everyone, so everyone, including yourself as a director, has a good time? So I really like that. I really like detail like that in role-playing games and guidebooks for role-playing. Standing down, yellow alert. And then it goes into, as I mentioned earlier, in the characters chapter, it talks about story elements too, this time in story building ways like setting, theme, how to run games, manage groups, all the stuff that you need to tell a good story that's going to make everybody happy, hopefully. That's the chapter. So if you're a director, if you want that advice, dive into there, especially if you want to know how to run a game like Redacted. This is where you're going to go. Chapter 5 is Antagonists, and there are some really cool antagonists in here that are so perfectly crafted and tailored for this environment, for this B-movie 1950s style environment that you have here. So it shows the types of antagonists, the archetypes like aliens, anti-villains, which is pretty cool, authority figures, beast bullies, equals, machines, and masterminds. But then they also have the antagonist tiers. 4 levels of antagonists. There's minions, which are just the cannon fodder. The lackeys, which are step up from that. Your villains, that are going to be a threat. And then the arch villains, which are going to be the scary ones, the big bads of your campaigns. The tiers determine the build of these adversaries, the kind of attributes they get, the competencies, props, special effects, and possibly conspiracies of their own. And there is a section, as I said, very cool ideas for every tier of pre-made antagonists. Things like angry civilian, giant crab, you gotta have a giant crab, of course, the chupacabra, death worm, mad scientist, and yellow alert. I think this is so cool. Future self. Ooh. I hope that's not spoiling anything, because I want directors, I want GMs to hit their groups with a future self arch nemesis. How cool is that? And especially the mechanics of how you build this future self as an arch villain. So cool. So nice. I love that. Okay. Stand down. Stand down. Those are the antagonists. Chapter 6 is missions. This provides one full-length mission, and it's a hefty mission. I was surprised at the page count here. It's a very big mission called Days Before Discovery. Days Before Discovery. It's based on the Dyatlov expedition, or the Dyatlov Pass incident. That, again, if you're into conspiracy theories, you've probably heard that before, and there's plenty of YouTube videos out there on it. If you're not familiar and you're wanting to play and you're wanting to experience, I say don't look it up until after you play, because this adventure is based on that true incident that happened and sadly did claim the lives of a group of, I believe they were Russian students or hikers trying to get across the Dyatlov Pass. And the story, even though it's based on true events, it does in the beginning respectfully point out the loss of life and mentions the victims that were involved. And the story that is about to take place here is not meant as any disrespect to what they went through, which, again, look it up if you're interested. It's really weird. It's really creepy. It's the thing that conspiracy theories are made of. Aside from that, there are, I believe, 8 mission briefs also included inside this section, so you can use that as a kickoff for your own story to flesh out. So that's one big mission, and then 8 additional briefs that will help get you started in this world of Redacted. And finally, Chapter 7 is called Inspiration. And Inspiration has a list of films from the 1950s to the 60s, such as them. I believe I mentioned earlier, This Island Earth, featured in Mystery Science Theater 3000, the movie. If you haven't seen that, recommend that. War of the Worlds, and the like. So you can look up tons of movies that they recommend to get the feel, get the atmosphere for this. And it ends after that with some pre-gen character sheets and forms that you can fill out for your own character sheets. And that is Redacted. Let me come back into the large window. There we go. I love the idea behind this game. As I said, conspiracy theories, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot. I have so many documentaries I recorded on VHS tape throughout the 90s into the early 2000s on all of this stuff. I went to the library, got tons of books on conspiracies, aliens, UFOs. I was studying it like it was my job. And I got paid roughly about the same as I get paid now at my real job. That's how sad things are. But anyhow, so this is really calling out to me the idea behind it. X-Files, that's my thing. Men in Black, I'm not really into the comedy aspect of it, but the idea behind it is there. And you can play your movie, your redacted movie, your majestic investigation in any vein that you want. The serious adventure, the political thriller, the goofy, silly B-movie with the weird props going around. They're made of cardboard and paper mache. You get to design it. I am such a fan of this style of content and gaming. Plus, the threshold system, else threshold system, so simple, so easy to learn, so easy to teach, keeps the game moving fast. That's exactly what a game like this needs. If you are familiar with Star Trek Adventures and you think that's a pretty smooth system, that's a pretty rules light system, this is even lighter than that. This is even more narrative than that. It's focused on telling the story of your movie. It's not worried about measuring distances, doing that. You are trying to make the most exciting, captivating adventure investigation that's possible. So no fault with that. As I mentioned, again, there is a miniatures game associated with this. This is the role-playing aspect of that majestic universe. Saucer Squadron is the war game, the miniatures war game set in the same universe, using the same kind of design and idea and story behind it. So if you're interested in the war game aspect, you have that. If you're interested in role-playing, you have that. You could combine the two. Why not? Really cool game. If you have a chance to try it, links down below to find it on DriveThruRPG and anywhere else I could get the links from. Please let me know what you think. I would love to hear it. Hopefully in the near future, maybe Aaron or Al might run a game and I'll get to jump in. I really want to play. As much as I love conspiracies, as much as I know about conspiracies, I want to play this game, not run the game. I would gladly run it, but I don't want to. I want to play. I want to experience. I want to be the agent going into the investigation. So, anyhow, if you play it, please let me know. If you have thoughts on the game, please post them down below. Love to hear what you think about Redacted. But that's it for me. I apologize for all the coughing and weird things going on here. It's that alien spores in the air here. But anyhow, as always, thank you for watching. Until next time, stay safe out there, my friends. Live long and prosper, and the truth is out there. I'll see you next time.